Up there, it's always nice to see your name, I'm sure, but any surprises?
Well, no, it's just the anticipation and the waiting game. And after last year, we weren't expecting what we got a year ago, and so I think I kind of just went in with a little more, just let's see what happens. And then obviously, unfortunately, with what happened with the men, you just never know, and it kind of hits home too a little bit. So just want to hear your name called, and once you do, there's excitement to it, and now we'll start to piece it all together a little bit more.
Coach, is there any way you can explain to me, and I don't know what your opinion is about the net rankings, but a team that's 12th in the net is a 6th seed. Can you explain that?
Well, no, and I've never been in the room to know what all the metrics are.
Yeah.
I know they use more than that, but I don't know. I guess the question is why we put so much weight in the net all year long and then don't use that or weigh it more heavily when we're going through it all, which is supposed to be take the human element out, make it computer-based on what you've done throughout the entire season. But we've seen in years past they don't just go off of the net. So again, it's not overly surprising, I guess, but I don't understand the whole formula and how it works.
So any disappointment at all along those lines?
Not really, I guess. Probably more a year ago, to be honest, than this year. I mean, the disappointment because we really wanted to see if we could host. Didn't think that was really going to come into play. So I've been telling everybody I thought we were 6 plus or minus a seed line. And so if we had been a 5, I probably wouldn't have been shocked. If we had been a 7, I might not have been completely shocked, but thought 5 or 6 was probably where we were.
What do you guys have to do in order to be in contention for seed?
I just thought we were probably a couple wins away. I don't know if the Big 12 women in the non-conference had as good of a year as we needed to. And that may have probably cost us a little bit. Baylor played really well here late to sneak into a top 4. TCU had 2 really good wins. They have the best wins in the non-conference. So we just needed probably a few more non-conference wins to get more teams elevated. More quad 1 games would have helped.
You mentioned about your prep a little bit. Does it help a little bit? You got that extra day. I know it's still crowded, but that you can put together your scouting reports with not quite as much rush.
Well, it does, but now we have the play-in game, so that actually that doesn't necessarily help the prep in one way. I mean, we may just have to take a couple days to prepare for one of the teams, and then we can have a couple days to prepare for the other team, where they would be preparing for us on a one-day prep. So still should be advantage us from the prep standpoint. They'll just have now played a game on the floor, and now you got that, just like in a conference tournament where when you get the double bye, you're waiting on people that have already played. So those first quarters, our first quarter on Saturday will be pretty important.
You speak of Chapel Hill, the closest to campus in the region.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think everybody wanted something a little more regionally based. I know, that Charlotte type, area is good for us and our alumni in West Virginia. So hopefully we can draw, off of that. And then the local, people to Morgantown or just to our state. That's not, I don't know how far is it to Charlotte. What is it, 5-6 hours probably, something along those lines. So it's very much drivable if people want to come check us out.
You mentioned not to ask you about any of the opponents, but as far as your prep goes, to go back to that for a second, what's the one thing you're going to be kind of hammering home this week before you start heading to Chapel Hill?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll go divide it up as coaches here in a second and, start that. And really that's what it will be, is just figuring out how we want to break up the practices and how we do want to prepare. And, I've been in leagues before where you played like Friday, Saturday, and so you would spend Monday, Tuesday on one opponent and then Wednesday, Thursday on the other opponent. So that's where my thinking comes a little bit, goes back to that. So we may go with a formula a little bit along those lines, but we'll go work on that tonight and figure it out.
How have you used this past week? Have you done anything with the team? When did they get back together?
We gave them a couple days off early, did some skill stuff in the middle of the week, and then we got back in practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But shorter practices, somewhat intense though, where we could keep their lungs and keep them playing at the right speed. It's the last thing I wanted to do was lose your rhythm and pace and tempo, when you get to this point of the season.
Coach, you spent the last basically 3.5 months playing Big 12 teams. Is there any sense of newness that comes with this tournament?
Yeah, there is, sure. It's refreshing in certain ways. Some of your stuff that wasn't working late in the year may work again a little bit because they're maybe not quite as familiar. But other than that, it's still, you're just preparing for an opponent. We're just not as familiar. So sometimes that's a good thing, and then sometimes that's a bad thing as well. But for the most part, it will be fun to have some new fresh, teams that we'll play.
JJ's last run, how do you approach this with her? Any conversations, or you just let her go? Or?
No, I don't know that we'll talk much. I think she's been in the kind of proverbial zone here lately and kind of on that heater, and I like where she's at. So I don't think there's too much that we have to say to her. I think seniors this time of year are they understand the assignment, and I think she's understood it here for a little bit.
So your defense is different than a lot. So have you found in postseason, for those that haven't faced it before, is it problematic for those people?
It can be an advantage for sure. Is it problematic? I don't always know. I mean, I played against North Carolina in the tournament a couple years ago at SFA, so familiar somewhat with them, and they would have played against us. But on a short prep, that's usually advantage us if you haven't played against it. So there may be an advantage to that with the play-in game, on Thursday.
What did North Carolina do against it?
They beat us in a really, really good game. But, really good game.
In doing your scouts, when you say, hey, this team is sort of like XY that we played this year, it's kind of a teaching tool?
It can be. We can divide it up that way some. Coaches that had a scout that maybe was similar to a style, or if a coach has been, in a league that played against the coach, depending on what school they were at. So, we'll go back and kind of figure that out, and there'll be some strategy to who has what scout for sure.
Coach, obviously last year there was disappointment in the seeding, and then obviously Caitlin Clark was in the region. Is there a different feeling going into this region that maybe more confidence, there's more of a chance that, hey, Westview could win this region?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what we did a year ago in the tournament, I think a lot of people have still talked about that. We want to build off of it, and, we played in that big-time environment. So, I've told them all year there should be no environment that should intimidate us if you were on the team that played at Iowa a year ago. But I think there's a sense of comfort, maybe a little bit, of what we've done and where we are, and just doing this again. Last year I didn't know what the heck was going on, here and where we were going and what all that was, and it certainly feels much better now than it did a year ago.
When it comes to atmosphere and maybe handling the moment of playing in the NCAA tournament, do you let the players, the experienced girls like JJ and others, kind of talk to the younger players about that, or do you all as coaches kind of take care of that?
It'll be a little bit of both. I mean, we'll probably address it a little bit tomorrow and talk about, things like what does it take to advance, and let the older kids talk that through, but we'll maybe start those conversations, and I would imagine our older kids that have been there will spread the message as well. But that's the beauty of the Big 12 and the Big 12 tournament is like the feeling in Kansas City last weekend is very, very similar to what you feel in an NCAA tournament. And, when you're playing Kansas State and TCU, those are Sweet 16, first, second round type feels. So we've got some experience, and so that feeling should be fairly normal for us.
Thanks, man.
Any thought about the Mohegans?